Hi everyone, it's Harry. I thought I'd bring everyone up to speed after the April numbers. End of April numbers have come out for the month of April, and I wanted to wait a little bit to get a sense of where we're headed with regard to the Calgary market by looking at some of the May data. For the first time, the overall market has now firmly moved into a balanced state. The only exception would be the detached market, which is on the cusp of becoming balanced. And what's really happened is that it's basically a sales story. The inventory is not much higher than it was last year, but what's happened is we've seen a collapse of sales because of the issues with the tariff war with the U.S. We've seen folks basically sidelined. We've seen basically a 20 to 25% drop in sales, and it's starting to take hold, and we still have about 2 months to go because Trump, the U.S. Administration, has basically put a halt on any further discussions on tariffs for about 3 months, and we're a month into that. So what we're seeing is that a bit of a malaise in the overall economic market around the world, and we're seeing it start to impact the Canadian market itself. And I've been saying that this would happen. It's taken a little longer than I thought. The prices are they peaked in my mind, and they're starting to drift lower. I would expect this to continue. The only saving grace may be if the Bank of Canada reduces their interest rates a quarter point in this early June, where we might see a bit of a they call a steadying of house pricing. But so far, it's been pretty steady to last month. The April number for the average came in at a little about $647,000 for the total Calgary market. That's a slight increase on in the March number, but the average May numbers after about a weekend is falling off from that. Is on the same level as the March number, so I don't expect a lot of upward movement. In fact, I'm expecting downward movement in pricing. And what we're seeing is that market inventory is about 2.6 months or 6,145 homes right now. It was 500, let's say 5,900 for the month of April. I just rounded upward there. So we're seeing a substantial increase in inventory as well as a substantial decrease in supply. And it's not like we have a huge increase in inventory, but it is there. Much more so than we saw last year in the month of April. What's happened is that people haven't been buying, and it's starting to build this inventory. It's and we're going to see this start to affect the pricing in the market. I would expect we've reached a peak. If not, we're going to start to see some decreases in pricing. And the detached market, what we're seeing there is a very similar effect. I mean, inventory's up around 2,643 homes with sale, or 2,500 homes for April, and sales are down to 1,100, and that's what's driving this balanced nature. We're headed that way. The April pricing was 839 roughly, and that's comparable to what we saw in March. And the early May data is seeing a drop from there. And this effect is more pronounced in Toronto as well as Vancouver. What I've noticed is that average pricing re Calgary versus Toronto, Toronto used to be twice ours. Now they're about 70% greater than ours. And Vancouver used to be about 2.5 times ours. They're they're about 2 times ours, maybe a touch higher if you look at detached homes. So the Vancouver market has fared better than the Toronto market, but this is going to start impacting migrationary flows to Alberta. It's still cheaper to be in Alberta, more affordable, but the main gain, main differential is starting to decrease. So what I expect is that we're going to start to see, I won't say a collapse in Calgary pricing, but I think we've seen the ceiling, and my belief is that it will start to head lower. Um, right now, we're still ahead of last year's overall pricing. We're around, as I said earlier, around that 640-ish, 630 to 640 range. Last year's 24 average was 610, 607 to be exact. Um, I think we might drift down to that by the end of this year. So overall, I'd see pricing similar. I don't see a wholesale collapse happening because there's still a lot of folks looking for homes, and the net migration to Alberta still exists, although at a much, at a reduced level. I'd suspect 2025 net migration to be in that 100,000, and would see about at least half of it come to Calgary, if not more. With that in mind, there'll always be demand. So I think we should be okay in Calgary. I don't see a big uptick coming this year. Uh, if you're a buyer, still a good time to buy because what I'm finding when I'm helping out any buying clients is that anything that's good typically gets sold. Maybe you won't be in a highly competitive time frame, but you might find one other person you'd be bidding against. But so it's not as if it's a collapse of the market. There are opportunities out there. It's good to hit those opportunities because the market ever changes on us, and that may not happen for a quarter or so. As we see how the U.S. responds to this trade, how they deal with this trade war, we might see a bit of an uptick. But if you're selling, I would suggest if you if you don't need to sell, wait a little bit. If you can wait a year, you'd probably get a better price for your home, much more than you think. But if you need to sell, I would suggest selling sooner rather than later because I'm still seeing this downward drift in overall pricing that's happening. And, quite frankly, I recently sat down, here's an anecdotal story, with one of my more investor client. We went through the numbers and, we both decided, and I just said, don't sell your rental property. You're getting too much value from it, and you're not going to get the uplift you want on the sale. So I'd like to think I'm someone's real estate advisor. Obviously, I'd love to have the commission because it pays my bills, but I don't want to see my clients lose out on an investment. So hopefully, whoever you deal with will always be there to help you and give you good real estate advice. That's my mantra. So if you have any real estate questions, please reach out. Otherwise, have a great rest of the week. Hopefully, this information has been useful to you. Bye now.